Jeremy Fowler, ESPN's national NFL reporter, his read of the Browns quarterback competition.
Just a guess, but if I had to guess, I think it will be Flacco. Talking to people there, he's still the best thrower they have on the roster. He's really well liked there. He knows the system, at least to a degree. He's had success in it. But they like what Kenny Pickett's doing too. And then, the rookies are coming along. So I would still say Flacco right now. I thought that coming into it, that hasn't really changed in my mind, unless I'm surprised and something shifts, but these rookies, I do think they're going to bring them along. Now, it does seem like there's a little more momentum lately for them potentially keeping 4 quarterbacks. Coming out of the draft, it was reminded to me that, hey, Cleveland, they value players like a lot of teams, but maybe more so than others, value them like currency, like value, and tradable assets, right? So if you have 4 quarterbacks and somebody performs well in the preseason, or you showcase somebody to perform well in the preseason, maybe you can trade a piece. And then you have 3 quarterbacks. But there's a scenario where they can keep 4, or maybe they can stash one on the practice squad. There are a lot of things you can do. It seems like they are at least open to those options at this point.
And Jeff, I wouldn't be surprised if one of those guys, if Sampson or Gabriel, ends up, Sanders or Gabriel, ends up on the practice squad. Yeah, and people are like, oh, they'll never make it through. He was a 5th-round pick. People didn't want him as a backup. There is a real possibility that either Dillon Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders could end up on the practice squad.
If it was going to be one, I'd maybe say it was going to be Dillon Gabriel, but here would be the problem with that. The problem with that would be for the Browns to even consider doing this, they would have to consider that the thought would be that one of them looked really, really bad. I agree. If you're thinking what is the best chance for the Cleveland Browns to win week 1, week 2, week 3, I will stay and continue to say that I think it is Joe Flacco. We actually have some evidence here to kind of back that up. And I think what makes Flacco, a head above here over Kenny Pickett is Joe doesn't need as much work. So if you're trying to groom Shedeur Sanders, Dillon Gabriel, both, you can do that because Joe doesn't need the workload at this point in his life at 40 years old that he would be if he was a 28 or a 29-year-old starting quarterback. Number one, you're going to want to limit him due to his age. Number two, he's just got so much experience. Practice reps on Wednesday are not going to be the be-all, end-all to what Joe Flacco does on a Sunday. I don't know about the 4 quarterback scenario just because once you get into the regular season and the time is just so limited, it's hard enough going to be able to find enough reps for 3 quarterbacks than trying to factor in a 4th quarterback. If it does turn out to be Joe, you have to think there's a possibility you could probably move Kenny Pickett for what you paid for him, which was a 5th-round pick. I do think for me, though, I think as this has gone on to this point, whether it was rookie minicamp, whether it was OTAs, whether it was minicamp, I think they need to maybe reevaluate the plan in regards to Shedeur Sanders. I don't understand. And look, you can say Gabriel was drafted in the 3rd round and you can say Sanders was drafted in the 5th round. I don't know that there's much difference between either guy. Both guy had significant amount of playing time in college. Neither guy, if they're going to hit in the NFL, is a guy that's probably going to have to sit very long. I just think for where they are right now, for me, if you're going to say which one is basically not necessarily rising above the pack as far as his play, but who's maybe, rising above the group as far as wanting to have the ability to see more of, I got to think it's Shedeur Sanders. And, if you end up that you keep the 2 veterans and, only 1 rookie, I guess that's a move you can go with. But I would think it would be 1 veteran and 2 rookies when this team finally gets to its first 53-man roster.